In this lecture, you'll learn how to use timelines in a super practical way. I think they'll become a really important part of your sales tool belt. Now, you might be thinking of a timeline as an organizational thing, something you present to a client or customer to plan out the course of a project after they're on board. And it is. But it can also serve as a really valuable piece of sales collateral. And in this lecture, you'll find out why, including 2 specific secrets for making your timeline win you more deals. So as we talked about, a timeline is a great way to tie your prospect to the calendar, which is especially helpful when they don't have a great degree of urgency or they're giving you a delay. By using one, you'll really help to move your sales cycle forward. Today, we'll be using Tom's Planner, which is really easy to use and intuitive. I used to use Excel and even Word to make timelines, which is a bad idea. It took forever, it looked ugly. This is a super fast and clean interface, and once you create a template in Tom's Planner, you can shift things around easily to fit the situation. They have a free demo which allows for the use of one template, and you can pay $9 a month to get up to 20 and additional features like including your own logo and things like that. So let's take a look at the interface and an example. You want to focus on what happens before, during, and after a customer engagement. Presenting something like this is really valuable because it'll let your prospect visualize the entire process with you. It gives them a taste of what it'll be like working with you, and it makes the vague and somewhat intimidating notion of engaging a new company suddenly much more approachable. So in the first section here, the setup area, make sure to detail what your prospect needs to do to get started with you. Now, if your contracting and payment situation is instantaneous, then this won't be as much of an issue for you. But if you need to figure out the odds and ends of a services agreement and get a 50% deposit and figure out anything else like that, it's quite likely that your prospect is not building in this time. But don't worry if you're in this boat. You can use your setup process to create urgency. Be sure to emphasize to your prospect that to have their solution as soon as possible, they will need to get the ball rolling today. And use your timeline to really help drive this point home. Now let's look at the specific stages of the setup process. This is kind of self-explanatory: the services agreement, engagement deposit, and as you see, Tom's Planner lets you call things out using symbols and other things like that. Now, one of the first hidden strategies that most people don't think of when it comes to a timeline is it really gives you a golden opportunity to intrigue your prospect. You should create some sort of specific or maybe even a branded process with some sort of tangible or valuable outcome that comes out of it. In this case, we've used a creative interview and a comprehensive recommendation. This example is loosely based on an animated video project, but you could easily repurpose this for almost any offering. And make sure to highlight and call out these value points by using symbols and other things like that. So what are these 2 outcomes telling your prospect? Basically, they're saying, all I have to do is answer some questions and these guys are going to solve all my problems. But first, I have to sign on the dotted line. So already this timeline is starting to paint a picture of a specific reality that your prospect will experience. Next, you'll go through the actual engagement. This is the implementation process. The benefit here is giving your prospect a feel for what the experience will be like. So this is just another way to move the process forward. And then we're going to get to the wrap-up section down here. This is another great opportunity to sell. You're basically sandwiching the timeline between 2 intriguing selling points. And in this example, it's a consulting session on how to get results from the product, in this case, animated video. So as I mentioned, there are 2 secrets to making your timeline win you more deals. First of all, you might be thinking, what if they don't like the timing I give them? What if they need things faster, or they have to pay slower, or this just doesn't fit what they have in mind? Which brings us to the very first secret. And that's that problems and edits are good for you. Once you start collaborating on a timeline with your prospect, you've propelled yourself so far ahead. It means you're basically working with them already as you start iterating on things. It means they're investing their time and energy in working with you. And scrapping the project would mean that that was all for nothing. And as for the second secret, and very few people know to do this, you don't have to keep the same timeline template for every prospect. Instead, you can customize it to cater to the challenges and desires of whoever you're talking to. So, for example, in this case, maybe the hypothetical prospect was really concerned about getting conversions and overall financial results from an animated explainer video, hence the session that we've set up at the end, how to get results from video. And as far as they know, that's just something we do with every customer. Or maybe someone else is worried about how well their boss or their team of superiors will look at the outcome of the project. So maybe this session would be focused on making them happy at the end. Another huge benefit of using a timeline is that your prospect will almost always be eager to see one. People are familiar with this tool and they know it gives a lot of insight. So you won't have to do much selling or explanation to get them to look at it and start thinking about it. So now just to go through the features a little bit. If you want to export the file, you just go to this icon right here, click export, and I'd say a PDF is probably the most efficient way to do it. So once you've exported it, here's what it looks like. As for how to present this, now you can send it over directly after the first meeting and you can kind of set it up during the first meeting. The timeline is especially helpful and important if your prospect gives you a legitimate delay or is just generally lacking urgency. And from there, you can use it to arrange a follow-up appointment. So you might pose it like this. Would it be helpful if I created a timeline to show you what the engagement would look like? And most likely they'll say yes. So you'll respond with great. I'll send it over in an email. To make sure it's clear and to see if you need any edits, I'd like to arrange a time to talk briefly next week. Since I have my calendar in front of me right now, can we aim for Tuesday at 3? From there, you can use the urgency of the timeline dates, these dates that you've agreed on, to maintain communication. So after the follow-up meeting, you might say, to make sure we stay ahead of the calendar, I think we should discuss best next steps on XYZ date. Does that work for you? So overall, a timeline is way more valuable than it might seem at first glance. It's good for keeping up urgency. It's great for starting to collaborate, especially if there's edits or changes that have to happen to the timeline. And it allows you to custom tailor your offering to your prospect's needs in a way that looks completely natural. Let's go into the next tool.